But how did we arrive at this moment? Fighting gods and forging alliances with dragons. To understand, we must return to the beginning, to the origin of our hero. Our journey begins with a choice of 4 playable races. The Char are technically among them, though their sins from Guild Wars 1 remain deliberately unforgiven. From the outset, Guild Wars 2 sets the tone for its artistry with a stunning hand-painted UI, a preview of the game's masterful design. No matter which race you choose, all professions are valid choices. Some races thrive through intellect, others by steel and fire. The Asura, small yet brilliant, shape the world through arcane invention, convinced that wit, not might, wins the day. The Char, by contrast, see war as life's only certainty, their society built upon discipline, conquest, and relentless victory. Others fight not for domination, but for survival and legacy. The humans, once rulers of great kingdoms, now cling to Kryta. Their god silent, yet their unyielding spirit drives them forward. The Norn, exiled by the Ice Dragon, seek legend through battle, knowing that only the victorious are remembered. Then there are those born of something different. The Sylvari, newly awakened from the Pale Tree, are guided by the Dream, walking the line between curiosity and honor, discovery and duty. Though they share similarity with canonical fantasy elves, there's something more, not just inhabitants of nature, but its living will made manifest, a physical expression of the cosmos' own awareness. Professions in Guild Wars 2 fall into 3 broad archetypes. Soldier, clad in heavy armor, endure the front lines through brute strength and resilience. Adventurers in medium armor, balance speed, precision, and tactical ingenuity. And lastly, scholars, wielding raw magic, sacrifice armor for arcane supremacy. It's important to note that elite specializations can dramatically alter how our profession plays. What begins as a straightforward archetype may be inverted, enhanced, or completely reimagined, ensuring that your initial choice is just the beginning of your journey. Guild Wars 2 character creation strikes a balance, not as hyper-detailed as Black Desert Online, yet flexible enough to ensure your character looks consistently appealing across the game world. Unlike Star Wars The Old Republic and Lord of the Rings Online, which overhauled player models to mixed reception, Guild Wars 2 has taken a different approach. Instead of replacing older customization models, it adds new ones, preserving player agency and ensuring that your chosen identity interior remains yours. After finalizing your character's appearance, you'll answer a series of biological questions shaped by your race and profession. These influence early quest lines, but have little lasting impact, which may mislead new players into expecting a deeply branching narrative, only to later discover that Guild Wars 2 leans more into world-driven storytelling than individualized choice. As we will uncover, the main story oscillates between Star Wars The Old Republic cinematic storytelling and Lord of the Rings Online open-world implicit chronicle, creating an uneasy balance, neither fully committing to one approach nor the other. That said, one of the game's best narrative touches is its cinematic commencements, which range from impressive to absolutely epic. These stylized intros do more than introduce your hero. They define each race's culture, societal expectations, and looming threats. Norn confront a massive ice worm, a chilling precursor to their war with Jormag. Asura battle a towering golem while enduring the ever-present scrutiny of the Inquest. Humans defend Divinity's Reach against a rampaging elemental, a stark reminder that the gods have abandoned them. Meanwhile, the Sylvari intro, one of the most visually striking, has you cleansing the dream of the Nightmare Court's corruption. But Guild Wars 2 doesn't waste time.
We're under attack.
Right from the start, these tutorial sequences introduce combat, NPC interaction,
They're killing people. Thanks.
and dynamic events. And unlike other MMOs where large-scale encounters are reserved for later levels, Guild Wars 2 throws you into the thick of battle immediately. Whether it's facing a dragon, clashing with mechanized conspiracy, or standing against the lightning strike of a raging elemental.
What is that? It's huge!
Guild Wars 2 makes one thing clear. You're here to experience the adventure, not wait for it. I saved the Char for last because more than any other race, their story in Guild Wars 2 is defined by perspective. Not from a gameplay standpoint, but in how history itself is framed. The Char's opening sequence marks a significant recontextualization of their place within Tyria. shifting them from the long-standing foes of humanity to a militarized but structured society with its own internal struggles. However, this shift also casts the Ghost of Ascalon, once depicted as the victims of Char aggression in Guild Wars 1, as the antagonists, while positioning the Char as embattled survivors of a past war. This narrative shift reflects how history is often shaped by perspective. The original game told this story from a human viewpoint, framing the Char as an existential threat. In contrast, Guild Wars 2 presents the Char's own perspective, one where they have fought not only against humans, but against religious oppression, internal rebellion, and their own past mistakes. For players who completed Guild Wars 1 but haven't read the Guild Wars novels, this shift in perspective can feel abrupt, if not disconnected, because the necessary narrative bridges explaining these developments remain largely off-screen. While technically accurate to the lore, the transition is a reminder that history, both real and fictional, is shaped as much by who tells it as by what actually happened. In fact, one of the first spectral foes you confront is none other than Duke Baradin, a name that carries weight for those who walked the fields of pre-searing Ascalon in Guild Wars 1. Once a noble defender of humanity, a mentor who taught warriors the art of wielding the hammer, he now stands as an enemy to be defeated. From the Char's perspective, this confrontation is just and intuitive. They see the ghosts of Ascalon not as tragic remnants of a lost kingdom, but as relentless aggressors, clinging to a past that no longer exists. Yet, for players who once trained under Baradin's guidance, the encounter is unsettling, if not outright surreal. To be forced to strike down a figure who once symbolized strength and stability is a poignant reminder of how much the world, and our place in it, has changed. For our journey through Guild Wars 2 main story, we'll experience it through the lens of a human guardian. As hinted earlier, one of my favorite storytelling features is the game's cinematic conversation UI, which functions almost like a stage, enhancing dialogue and character interactions.
Balthazar, bless you. That's the spirit that'll win this war. Good luck.
This theatrical presentation gives weight to the developing epic, yet remains entirely optional, allowing players to skip through scenes if they prefer. It also provides a subtle but effective way to observe your character's visual progression over time, as these conversations present them face forward, rather than the usual over-the-shoulder view. And for new players, I can't recommend Lyranity's Guild Wars 2 content enough, especially her definitive guide on YouTube. Of course, the main story of Guild Wars 2 is deeply interwoven with the shared world of Tyria. The Newbie area outside Divinity's Reach, the human capital, is often bustling with welcoming veterans, eager to buff, guide, and support new players, especially when fresh content drops. If you spot a player with an apple-shaped tag above their head, that means they're a mentor, a community volunteer willing to assist new players. But if you can't find one, you can always consult the wiki, a source of expansive information. Simply type /wiki plus whatever keyword you want, and you'll be redirected accordingly. As such, even at early levels, it's clear that Guild Wars 2's community is one of collaboration, not competition. A world where players are here to help, not hinder. In this way, Guild Wars 2 champions the second M in MMORPG, not merely through mechanics, but through a design ethos that invites players into organic, frictionless cooperation. Aubrey the Weird One, a content creator known for her insightful coverage of Lord of the Rings Online, ventured into Guild Wars 2 as a newbie and shared that.
Well, this is the thing that's really awesome about Guild Wars 2 is that I was a new player. I started playing. I was like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. And I got a lot of people who came in and gave me a lot of advice and tips. In fact, there were people who even helped me out on some quests and stuff. So it's super welcoming. And someone even gave me like the super rare legendary like item part, I guess, and people were like, oh my god, it takes forever to get this, Aubrey, and I'm like, thank you, you know. So it was very generous, a very generous community.
And she's not alone. Mighty Teapot, one of the MMO's most visible community leaders, stressed that,
but what if I want to play with my whole stream? Well, I've got good news. You've got the open world meta events, and you can actually have like a 50-man raid experience. How cool is that?
A model where high-end encounters unfold in open-world maps, accessible to all and requiring no fixed group. Yet community in Guild Wars 2 extends beyond the boundaries of in-game systems. While features like the LFG tool still need refinement, players have stepped up to build what the platform lacks: Mighty Teapot's Hard Stuck community, now over 30,000 strong, provides guides, mentorship, and connection across all aspects of gameplay, and it was born out of opportunity.
Yeah, like when I looked at WoW and I looked at Final Fantasy, I was like, wow, I love the community in these games, right? This is so cool. It's so dynamic. There's so many people talking and discussing and teaching and sharing all this information. This is amazing. I love it. So yeah, I wanted to kind of take a little piece of that and try and establish it in Guild Wars. Yeah.
Their site, hardstuck.gg, is a living knowledge base for anyone seeking to sharpen their skills. And if you appreciate what they do, you can support them directly via the referral link at the top of their site. But perhaps the most striking expression of community is tutoring. Not in the mechanical sense of unlocking a skill tree like in Star Wars Galaxies, but in the human sense of mentorship. Xedes, whose YouTube channel offers meticulous point-of-view breakdowns of raid mechanics, highlighted the passionate raid training communities that teach newcomers not only how to survive, but excel in Guild Wars 2's most complex encounters.
Raid Academy on NA, Crossroads on EU. You know, these are kind of communities that would help players to get into endgame content, to learn how to play these raids.
Developers like Delta, creator of raidcore.gg, go even further, building accessibility-focused tools and combat analysis add-ons to support every kind of player.
There's a big market for helping add-ons, especially when it comes to accessibility, because another add-on I made, I called it Mouse Look Handler. It was actually created because a user, they asked for help with action cam because if I remember correctly, they said they have limited use of the hand, so they needed something to toggle action cam, and I was like, yeah, sure, I can make that. It sounds like a great use case.
In Guild Wars 2, the community is not just a feature, it's an ecosystem, one that exists both inside and outside Tyria's digital borders, waiting for players like us to join, to learn, and to give back. To this end, Guild Wars 2 is defined by its level scaling system, better framed as downscaling, where your character's power adjusts to match the zone's intended difficulty. Unlike Elder Scrolls Online, which upscales players and thus diminishes the sense of progression, Guild Wars 2 ensures that you remain challenged, while still allowing you to adventure with friends or newcomers, provided you meet a zone's minimum requirements. This keeps all of Tyria relevant, encouraging exploration long after reaching max level. Even an in-game raider praised this design decision.
A, the combat system, B, old content is not obsolete, so you can still optimize that shit, and people continue to optimize it as well. So there's no real loss for like, oh, new content is bad, just go play the old content. It's not like it's, you know, out of date like in WoW or something like this. Like as soon as the new expansion drops, all old content is irrelevant. No, it's not the same here.
And since player skill improves over time, returning to early zones feels empowering. You may be downscaled, but your experience makes you far more formidable than a newcomer. As you progress from level 1 to 80, a pop-up modal will appear, highlighting newly unlocked features and upcoming rewards. A helpful guide for new players, but an annoyance for veterans who already know the ropes. ArenaNet, for the love of the six, please give us the option to skip these when rolling new characters. The human starter zone remains gorgeous, even in 2025. Sunlit vineyard tunnels, farmers tending crops, and a rustic tree fort paint a vivid picture of human life in Kryta. All while Divinity's Reach looms in the distance, a beacon of civilization. For those eager to learn the basics, an optional combat tutorial introduces dodging, a crucial mechanic that allows players to evade incoming attacks and negate all damage during the roll, a skill that will prove invaluable as combat intensifies. Queensdale is open and inviting, encouraging players to test their newfound abilities against the foes of Divinity's Reach. Its natural design gently pulls adventurers towards the forests that supply the city's timber, past its massive walls, and into the contested outskirts, where centaurs wage relentless war. Similar to older MMOs, each race in Guild Wars 2 begins in a distinct starting zone, progressing through landscapes that reflect their culture and history. While it doesn't offer the deep, class-specific narratives of SWTOR, each race experiences the world through a unique lens, with varied perspectives, conflicts, and regionally tailored story beats. This ensures that every playthrough, while ultimately converging with the core narrative, carries its own texture. Your journey is shaped as much by where you came from as by where you're going. Every step lays the foundation for what's ahead, setting the stage for the next chapter in our journey. Returning to our hero, the human journey in Guild Wars 2 is one of survival, legacy, and reckoning, a struggle to hold onto a fading past, while facing a future shaped by monsters and men alike. Kryta, the last bastion of human power, stands proud yet fragile, its people caught between eternal war and eternal strife. Outside Divinity's reach, Kryta buckles under siege. Bandits strike from the shadows. Separatists refuse peace with the Char, and with whom I personally agree, clinging to ancient feuds. And beyond them, Centaur war bands descend upon villages, relentless in their assault. Each skirmish is a test, demanding both skill and strategy, challenges that push adventurers to grow stronger. As you explore Tyria's frontier and defeat formidable foes, you will be rewarded with hero points. These can be invested into various specializations, groups of traits, and abilities that shape your combat profession. Abilities are active skills slotted into the right side of your combat bar, while traits provide passive benefits, enhancing effectiveness in subtle but meaningful ways. Most professions can mix skills freely across specializations, with Revenants being the exception and intricacy we'll explore later. Thus, the interaction between stat prefixes, traits, weapons, and skills ultimately defines your build. Yet mastering one's build is only the beginning. The conflict that shapes Tyria's present, skirmishes against bandits, Centaur warbands, and rogue factions, pale before the true threat. Something far older, far worse. Ships vanish overnight. Graves are left open. The body's gone. Soldiers return from war changed, their eyes vacant, their flesh rotting, their purpose no longer their own. The drowned kingdom of Or, long thought lost, has risen. And with it, Zhaitan, the elder dragon of death. The main quest pulls you all across Tyria, forging new friendships while seeking to uncover Zhaitan's growing threat. Alliances are formed, groups of heroes assembled, and fragile trust in human systems is shattered. As Zhaitan's influence spreads, it becomes clear this is no siege to be weathered. Tyria cannot wait. To survive, we must act. And so, the path turns to Or itself, a place long claimed by death, where hope must rise from what was thought lost.
For more than 100 years, Or has been lost. Despoiled, corrupted, ruined by the presence of a dragon, an infection withering the heart of Tyria. Fort Trinity symbolizes our determination. It stands as a mark of our unity against the dragons. From here, we will prevail. We will fight to rend the darkness with steel and flame, always looking toward the dawn. Our victory at Fort Trinity will show the world that we can strike against the dragons. When we are ready, we will prove that even in the Sanctum of Or, they are not untouchable. We can reach the dragon's lair in the heart of Or. We can assault Ara. We can destroy Zhaitan before the dragon's infection claims us all. This battle is over. We can triumph. But the war has just begun.
The final stretch of the main quest offers some of Guild Wars 2's most breathtaking world building, formidable enemies, and high-stakes encounters. Entire zones are dedicated to this culminating arc, representing the pinnacle of core overworld design. While underwater content is introduced earlier, the ruined continent of Or gives it room to shine. Upon diving, players automatically equip aquatic weapons with profession-specific skills, shifting the tempo and rhythm of combat. With battles unfolding in 3 dimensions, spatial awareness becomes critical. And unlike older MMOs that required breath management gimmicks, Guild Wars 2 handles the transition seamlessly through aquatic headgear, allowing for uninterrupted movement between land and sea. Through a campaign of decisive strikes against Zaitan's lieutenants, and cleansing of Or's Sacred Heart, and a final descent into the shadow of death itself, only one challenge remains. The dragon must fall. The Pax fleet rises into the storm, a final gambit against a foe that commands the sky itself. Airships weave between Aura's ruined spires, dodging Zaitan's gaze as the Elder Dragon descends, not as a mere beast, but as a living apocalypse. His rotting wings blotting out the heavens. Risen dragons tear through the fleet, pack forces are ripped from the air, and the city below drowns in shadow. But the pact does not falter. Cannons blaze, spells crackle, and steel meets bone in a desperate battle for Tyria's survival. The glory of Tyria locks into Zaitan's massive form, tracking the monstrous corpse dragon as it looms over Ara. Zojja works frantically to power up the Megalith cannon, the Pact's greatest weapon, while the crew holds the line against the last of the dragon's minions. Weakened and reeling, Zaitan clings to the ruins of its own empire, a crumbling husk, grasping at the last vestiges of dominion. The Pact's cannons fire, each blast ripping through the ancient horror's rotting form, unraveling the being that had once threatened all of Tyria. What was once unstoppable, inevitable, an existential force beyond reckoning, is now undone. Its reign ended not by time nor by gods, but by the defiance of mere mortals. The great dragon's corpse spirals into the abyss, swallowed by the very miasma it once commanded. But this time, there is no rising tide of undeath, no reanimation of the fallen. This time, the Elder Dragon will sleep forever. Yet for now, there is triumph. Cheers rising in the streets, banners unfurled in honor of the Pact's victory. Across Tyria's vast expanse, every city, every people, every ethos joins in a worldwide jubilee. For the first time in memory, an Elder Dragon has fallen. And at the heart of it stands you, your hero, the one who walked into the abyss and returned victorious. In a final act of mocking defiance, the skies burst not with necrotic fire, but with dazzling fireworks, green and black, the colors of Grenth, god of death. But this is no tribute to undeath. This is a celebration of Zaitan's end, the death of corrupted death itself. But it would be disingenuous not to acknowledge the odd juxtaposition of Zaitan's final battle. After dozens of hours of buildup, after a multi-hour assault through Or, the expectation for a climactic confrontation is at its peak. And yet the actual fight consists of firing cannons from an airship with little sense of personal threat or danger. Despite this spectacle, Zaitan's encounter is a relic of Guild Wars 2 early design, an ambitious but imperfect foundation for what was to come. Future Elder Dragon battles would refine and elevate the experience, introducing dynamic mechanics, evolving battle phases, and increasing player agency. For those yet to face Zaitan, know this. The future of dragon slaying in Tyria is far grander, especially when experienced through the sprawling multi-stage metas of later expansions. Looking back, Guild Wars 2's new player experience progression can feel disjointed. Upon release, around level 50, I found my interest slipping, and I never saw that character's personal story through to its end. And I'm not alone.
Yeah, I didn't really get through like the expansion content. Personally, I'm at level 55. Like, I wasn't a huge fan. Like, once you kind of get through the combat and you learned it, at least in the beginning for me anyway, it wasn't like the enemies weren't difficult for me. It just kind of felt like I was just mashing buttons kind of, and it wasn't anything entertaining for me at the point I got to. I've heard that it's a lot different once you get to the expansion, so I can't speak on that, but just from the beginning part, I was like, okay, I'm kind of over it. Like, I know my skills and, you know, it is what it is.
This corroboration suggests this shared experience is more than my personal anomaly. Several factors converge to create this jarring new player experience. Shallow core mechanics, inconsistent narrative pacing, ambiguous hearts and optional content, The base game's core content has become deliberately simple. Too simple. You can breeze through most encounters without ever touching the deeper combat systems, only to find yourself expected to master those very mechanics at endgame. The abrupt leap in complexity undermines the sense of gradual skill acquisition. Personal story quests themselves are reasonably engaging and well written, yet they are punctuated by uneven level gates. Without deliberately stacking every available experience bonus, players can stall in frustrating gaps before the next chapter unlocks, transforming progression into a grind rather than an organic journey. While one might argue these gaps encourage open-world exploration, the reality for many is a disconnected experience. The so-called hearts are visually prominent, yet entirely optional outside of legendary weapon tracks. Because they often tick off passively during events anyways, players remain uncertain whether these elements contribute meaningfully to progression, or function as superficial content. This ambiguity bleeds into broader uncertainty. Should I prioritize combo fields? Is weapon swapping a core skill? Does any of this even matter? By contrast, the expansions, beginning with Heart of Thorns, offer a far more cohesive experience. Story, mechanics, and exploration are interwoven. Meta events teach real-time coordination. Skill challenges masteries foreshadow deeper combat. That said, the personal story arc follows the classic hero's journey. Individual stakes escalate into world-shaping events. Over the course of approximately 30 hours, I completed the personal story at a deliberately measured pace, capturing footage and engaging with optional content, yet a focused player may be able to finish it in about 10 hours. For these reasons, I recommend that new players should boost straight to level 80, even though I expect many viewers to disagree with my recommendation. Levels in Guild Wars 2 are largely ornamental anyways. What defines your experience are the zones in which you explore and the mechanics with which you engage. Boosting bypasses the weakest pacing in the game and drops you into its most evocative spaces, where story, challenge, and design finally converge. If you're still watching and haven't yet played Guild Wars 2, you're likely asking yourself 3 questions. How much does it cost? And by extension, is it pay to win? How do I start playing? And how well does it run? Guild Wars 2 is a free-to-try, buy-to-play MMORPG with no monthly subscription. All non-expansion content is available for free, with some minor restrictions to encourage you to upgrade and to reduce economic tampering. Expansions regularly go on sale, and you can view the various combinations of content and their prices on their website. Personally, I have purchased every expansion at full price with no regret. Guild Wars 2's monetization model is often debated, but in my earlier coverage, I coined the term pay to help to better reflect how it operates. Unlike many MMOs, Guild Wars 2 is fundamentally collaborative, not competitive. In PvP, stats are normalized, so no one gains an advantage from spending money. In PvE, any investment into your character ultimately benefits others. Moreover, you can't directly pay for power, as in some other games. Instead, players purchase gems that can be converted into gold that can then be used to buy gear from the trading post. But this system works in both directions. Gold can be converted into gems, ensuring that free-to-play players always have access to premium items. Since exotic gear, the baseline for in-game content, is easy to acquire, there's essentially no material advantage to spending real-world money on equipment. And most gem store purchases focus on utility and cosmetics anyways. It's fair to say that any claim of pay to win is at best hyperbolic. And getting started is simple. You can register for an account on Guild Wars 2's official website, or play via Steam or the Epic Game Store. For those wondering about performance, Guild Wars 2 is surprisingly forgiving on hardware. I run 95% of content at maximum settings on a modest PC build. However, to push beyond the game's native performance limitations, I use lossless scaling, a frame generation tool that leverages my GPU to artificially boost FPS to 144. While this method does introduce some artifacts, particularly with text, the vast majority of footage in this video was captured using it. And so, Guild Wars 2 is not merely a game to be played. It's a genre-defining statement, an MMO that dared to rewrite the expectations etched through a decade of design orthodoxy. Across our exploration, we've seen how its systems subvert predictability, how personal stories reset railroading, how professions dissolve rigid roles in favor of fluid potential, how open world metas transform strangers into comrades without ever forcing a party invite. Whether through dynamic world events, skillful class design, aspirational group content, or the living tapestry of its community, Guild Wars 2 reminds us that innovation in MMORPGs is not just about novelty. It's about integration, about building a world that respawns, challenges, and elevates those who choose to inhabit it. As we conclude this chapter, one truth is self-evident. Guild Wars 2 didn't just learn from its predecessors. It questioned them, improved upon them, and offered a compelling answer to what the MMO could become. And while its stride today may be more predictable than its innovative early steps, its impact remains unmistakable, enduring, and well worth remembering. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more MMO content.